Thank you for tuning in to Toronto Talk Sports and more. This is episode number 12. It's your boy Hez. We got Milo in the building. And Courtz as well. What's going on, fellas?
It's good to be back, Hez. Week off, but nice to be back in the comfort zone and ready to talk some sports.
All right.
Definitely feels nice to be back in the studio. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Yes. It's good to have you guys back in studio. This is the first time in a few weeks that we've had the three of us, all of us together in studio. So glad to see that everyone is well and healthy and looking almost as good as I am. So good stuff, guys.
That's cute.
I'm lucky we're on the radio and not...
Oh, boy. TTS, baby. So listen, guys, we have this very interesting discussion in one of my family Google Hangout chat groups, right? Okay. So it's about boys and men, this is really funny, making a huge mess of the toilet area in the bathroom when we urinate, right? And of course, the topic came up of men sitting down to pee as opposed to standing up. Sounds crazy, right?
Okay.
So
I'm not sure where you're going with this, but okay.
Courtz, you were on that Google Hangouts chat. So listen, I'm going to share a few points. This is from an online health article written by a gentleman named Stephen Aitchison. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. Where basically he outlines a few points as to why men should sit down to pee. I thought this was quite interesting. So number one, he says you hit the target 100% of the time. You can't disagree with that. Right. If you're sitting down, you know exactly where your stuff is going. There's no problems there whatsoever. Number two, I thought this was interesting. It can apparently help to ward off prostate problems. Now, this was actually based on a 2014 study of men with urinary tract disease symptoms. They said that sitting down to urinate can actually help to ward off prostate problems. So that's very interesting. And for us, of course, we do know that prostate issues do run in our family, so we'll take notes on that. Number three, and I'm sure we can't disagree with this either, it's more relaxing. It's more relaxing to sit than to stand.
Right.
Now, do you guys remember there was an episode on Seinfeld, my all-time favorite show, where George Costanza, he was in the shop. I think it was owned by his girlfriend's uncle or whatever it was.
Right.
And he brought the rocking chair for the security guard.
That's
and he basically asked him, would you rather sit down or stand? He's
up,
like,
yeah.
I mean, if I had a choice, it's like, well, I'm an idiot. Of course I'd rather sit than stand, right? So that's another thing. It's more relaxing. Who wouldn't rather sit than stand? Number four, this is funny. No more getting your Johnson stuck in your zipper. So you wouldn't have that issue of getting your Johnson stuck in your zipper that I'm sure some of us have experienced at least once or twice in our life.
And sure, it's pretty painful.
And reason
especially when it's as big as mine.
large salami, that's no bologna. And number five, it says here, it's easier, because let's check this out. And we've talked about this before on our show, and it's not just millennials. We're all guilty of it, that we're obsessed with our mobile devices. So it's easier to use your phone while you're sitting down as opposed to standing up. So if you're sitting down to do your business, you'll have no problem returning emails, sending text messages, using WhatsApp, whatever the case. So fellas, this is, I know, kind of funny, but in a serious way, what are your thoughts on this? Is it realistic, or would you ever consider sitting down to urinate?
Well, for me personally, I mean, I'm a stand-up kind of guy, but...
A stand-up kind of guy. Boom.
But yeah, in terms of those points, those are excellent points that you made. And would I consider sitting down? Why not? But for now, like I said, I'm a stand-up kind of guy.
Because there is this kind of stigma, let's admit it, guys, that it's kind of... a feminine thing. It's not manly. It's not masculine to sit down. Another interesting thing I thought, just kind of researching this very funny topic, apparently half of the men in, if I remember correctly, Japan as well as Germany, apparently, about 45 to 50% of men in Germany and Japan sit down to pee. So it's not anything new over
Very
there.
sophisticated over there.
Apparently so.
You know what? If you do live with a lady and share with a toilet with a lady, she'd appreciate it a little bit more, right?
I'm sure she would.
Because we've all heard that those comments about, why are you leaving the toilet seat up all the time? So leave it down, sit down, have relax.
And I guess it's in one of the things we were talking in our hangout group the other day, the mess, obviously. And as guys, I mean, let's face it, we don't always have total control of our business. There's different things going on there, whatever the case. We don't want to get too graphic. But the point of the matter is it doesn't always, the aim, as was one of the points, it doesn't always go where it needs to go. So, there's a lot of cleanup involved, but sometimes it's hard to get everything. Usually, I'll do my little wipe with the paper, with the toilet paper or whatever the case. But it seeps, it gets underneath. And usually, I do my fair share of cleaning in the house. But for whatever reason, bathrooms, I just don't clean bathrooms. So my wife, she's the one stuck cleaning the bathroom. And I'm sure, exactly. And there are 3 males in the house. One of them, he's still too small to, stand up to pee. But I'm sure my wife would very much appreciate me, sitting down and training our boys to.
So are you making a pact right now, Zion, on Toronto Talk Sports? Are you going to start sitting down?
I'm making a pact right now that after reading that article, and there are many compelling points, especially the fact, perhaps the prostate issue, and just obviously it is definitely more relaxing and whatever the case, I will make a pact that it's something that I might consider sometime 20 years from now.
I think we need to bring in like a resident pee expert for an more segment on this. This could be an own segment
to really get it going.
Yeah.
Oh, demonstration.
This was a sports show.
Okay, so speaking of sports, guys, we do have a full show for today. Before I go there, actually, we just want to remind our audience to check out our website, torontotalksports.com. That's torontotalksports.com. If you're a passionate sports fan and you want to come join us in studio, get in on the conversation, that's what we're all about. We have more than enough room for you. Please visit our website, torontotalksports.com, and make your request through our website form. It's right on the site. You scroll down to the bottom of the homepage and click the link, give us your information, and we'd love to have you join us in studio. So, for today's show, we're going to be discussing, we have some NBA talk. We're going to be discussing some of the biggest names, actually, guys, in the league. We'll be discussing Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Kawhi Leonard. So a lot of things going on with those gentlemen. We'll discuss that. We'll have an open sports roundtable talk. We'll discuss some baseball, a little bit of World Cup, some NFL as well. And for our And More segment, we'll be featuring a beauty technician who will be joining us a bit later in studio. So it is a full-packed show. Once again, guys, welcome back. Glad to have a full cast here. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's talk sports. Toronto Talk Sports and more. Hez here. Time for some NBA talk. Today, we're very pleased to be joined in studio by Dr. Nadeem Masood, a.k.a. Deems. Huge basketball fan, longtime personal friend of all of us here at TTS. Doc, what's going on, brother?
Doing well, man. Pleasure to be here to speak some NBA basketball with you guys. We do this on a regular basis.
Yes.
Yeah, we do this on our own private group chat, so why not bring them on TTS and discuss a little bit with the public, right?
Happy to have you, bro. And on the line, on the phone line, we're very happy to be joined by my dear brother from another mother, all the way from London, Ontario, big sports fan, called basketball, baseball, football, you name it, Mr. Adwin Springer. What's going on, Adwin?
What's going on, Z? Glad to be here. It's been a long time coming, so I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Really, really excited to have you on to chop it up with the fellas and talk some sports. So, guys, and of course, Milo's here joining us for this segment as well. Let's get right to it. There's so much to discuss. We have 3 different basketball topics as we discussed from the beginning. Our first topic, Kevin Wayne Durant. So since joining the Warriors in the summer of 2016, the Dubs are 32-6 in the playoffs the last 2 seasons, including 8-1 in the NBA Finals. So just absolutely total domination. They faced their first real test this past playoffs against the Houston Rockets. That series went 7 games. And yeah, there's some controversy. If Chris Paul hadn't gotten injured, what would have happened there? I still think they would have won either way, whatever it is, what it is. But basically, KD, who's commonly regarded as the second best player in the league behind LeBron, he continues to face a whole slew of criticism, even 2 years after the fact, for joining a 73-win team and totally shifting the balance of competition in the NBA. They call him Snake, Cupcake, and a whole bunch of other things that I can't mention on here, or I probably wouldn't say anyways.
The Slim Reaper himself.
Yeah. So, guys, I'll just throw it out there because this is what's being stated online by the naysayers, the haters, whatever you want to call them, or maybe they do have a point. The question is, has Kevin Durant ruined the NBA?
So the answer to that question is no. He has not ruined the NBA. Although I was not a fan of the second best player joining the best team, quite arguably in the history of the NBA, I cannot say that he's ruined the NBA. I think that he's most likely done the NBA a great service. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the level of basketball that Golden State plays today, and teams that have a chance to compete with them, it requires them to play basketball the way, in my opinion, basketball should be played. Sharing the ball, defensive switches, complete teammates and complete teamwork. No longer can the ISO type players survive in the NBA, and quite frankly, I think that's a good thing.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that.
I totally agree with that. I don't think he's ruined the NBA, but just to add to the point that was made earlier by Adwin, him joining the best team, I think it's the way that it was done that drew a lot of criticism amongst his peers and even amongst some fans in the NBA. And so when you look at the other teams that have traditionally had superstars that have combined together, like the big three, when LeBron and D Wade and Bosh
and they were all in their prime.
Absolutely, and they were in Miami, but that wasn't the best team ever. They didn't come off a championship win, so
they didn't win 73 games.
Nobody was really comparing them to the MJ's 96 Bulls or anything like that.
Right.
Absolutely. And then when you look at Boston with the big three, Danny Ainge acquired those guys to come on in, and he created that team on his
They were a
own.
little outside of their prime, although
Right.
they were very good. It wasn't, a long-term thing. It was a 2-year kind of project.
Absolutely. So looking at it from that perspective, one thing I got to say about KD, though, is that, he's come in, he's done his thing, he's led that team. It's never going to be his team. It's always going to be Curry, and they have their 3 foundational guys that they drafted. So I don't think he's ruined the NBA, but I can see why he draws a lot of criticism.
Yeah, you look at social media, and once again, 2 years after the fact, he's continuing to get, let's call it what it is, destroyed, crucified, whatever you want to say, in terms of, you see the memes and, you go on any chat group that has to do with sports. It doesn't even have to be basketball. They have, little things about Kevin Durant ruined this, he ruined that.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, look, for me, I wouldn't go as far as he ruined the NBA, but did he make it a bit more unfair? Absolutely. You're talking about a top 2-3 player in the league joining forces with the best team, but we're all still intrigued during the season throughout the playoffs. Everybody in this room, except for our sound engineer over there, Paula, we all watch basketball no matter what. And look, if Chris Paul was healthy for Game 6 and 7, like you mentioned, Ed, who's to say Houston doesn't knock them off? So it's not like they're impossible to beat, but it was really tough before to even get close to those guys. And with KD joining them, it makes it a little bit more tougher. But to me, KD is one of the least selfish players in the entire NBA. He didn't want to play with one of the most selfish guys in Westbrook anymore. It wasn't about playing in a big market or getting the most money. It was about playing with players in a system that suits his game the best. So I don't fault him for going to Golden State and wanting to play for that franchise. It was his decision. And, his decision is going to come up again sooner. And, we'll see if he wants to stay in Golden State or go somewhere else.
So basically, he's a snake.
No, I wouldn't even go that far. No.
But is the criticism justified?
I think he definitely. I hear your point, Milo, but I think he definitely took an easier route. I don't think it was just the fact that it was a team that fit him. You're talking about a guy that can pretty much fit in any system.
Right.
He took a route that was going to guarantee him a really good opportunity to win a championship and be considered a great, right?
But isn't that what you want as an NBA player? You want to go somewhere where you have a great chance to win a championship. Let's say you went home to Washington, Yeah, he might have a chance to get to the finals or he start playing with John Wall and whatnot. But here, he's going to Golden State. He's going to play with great players that play a ball movement type of system that fits his game. So I don't really fault him for doing it.
And to that point, Milo, I think personally that's the reason why he went there. I don't think in his mind he was like, oh, I can't beat LeBron or I can't beat Golden State.
Right.
Let me join these guys. I don't think that was necessarily his reasoning. I think what happened was they did an excellent job. They, the Warriors, led by, I guess it was Draymond Green, sold him on this concept of team basketball, working together, increasing your efficiency and not having to do so much and just playing a style of basketball that's more conducive towards, the way you already play,
right,
compared to what the system that he was in OKC with Russell Westbrook. I do want to ask one thing, guys. So Myles Garrett, defensive end of the Cleveland Browns, he made a very interesting, provocative, if you will, statement a week ago.
Are they even relevant anymore?
Yeah, well, how many games did they win last year? So basically, he went on a radio show last week, and he said this. I'm going to read this. He said, with KD, you just stick him in, and he scores. You already know what they had. They were a 73-9 team before, and you put the second best player in the world on an already all-time great team, and of course you're going to have great success. Pretty easy success. Anyone can have an off night, and they're still going to find a way to win. But hold on, guys. He didn't stop there. He went on to say, if I were him, I would have never made a move like that in the first place. Me, I'm too competitive to try and ride on somebody's coattails to get a W. But for him, you might as well stay where you are. There's no point in leaving since you're already taking that moniker when he's already been called the snake and cupcake and all that. So guys, very, very strong words coming from, once again, a rookie in the NFL, so a cross-sport team. Once again, they haven't even won a game. Is this justified, coming from him? Or should he just basically stay in his own lane? What do you think of those comments?
I think why not? If he's a fan, he's entitled to his own opinion, and he's a competitive man. I think the problem here is that when you look at OKC, when they went toe-to-toe with the Warriors that year, I think a lot of fans were looking at it like, you know what? Here's a good matchup that can be had for the next few years if KD stayed there.
That's an excellent point, Nick. So what I will say to that is not only did KD strengthen the Warriors, he made the Thunder weaker. So it's kind of a two-pronged effect. Sure. What were you going to say there, Adwin?
I was going to say I think he's got all the right in the world to make that statement. I was actually listening or reading today about the statements that Adam Silver made in regards to the parity in the league and whatnot. And the general consensus seems to be across the league that a lot of people feel that way about Kevin Durant joining that team, even though they probably would do the same thing if given the opportunity. People will always say that they feel as though, the competitive spirit that they hold wouldn't allow them to do that. So I think he's within his right to say that. And I don't think it's inaccurate. I think it's relatively accurate.
The only issue that I have, and I agree with you guys in terms of everyone has a voice, it doesn't matter who you are, and we'll just kind of zing them a bit by talking about their 0-16 record on the Browns. The only issue that I personally have is questioning somebody's competitive nature. I don't think he should have done that. And how do you actually go that far? Like, how do you determine somebody's competitive versus they're not competitive? Just because, yes, while we will acknowledge he did join a super team and made them, a super duper team or whatever it is you want to call them. But I wouldn't necessarily say that that's a knock on his competitive nature. So that's the only issue that I had with that comment. But as we wrap up this segment, guys, all I really want to say is what we see here from the Warriors. Yes, they're a dominant team, and we could have that argument that, the greatest of all time, along with maybe the 91 Bulls or whatever the case. But why are people acting like we've never seen dominance like this before in the NBA? Like this is something completely new. You had the Celtics. They dominated in the 80s. You had the Bulls dominated the 90s. The Lakers in the 2000s. So in this particular era, the 10s, whatever you want to call it, we have the Golden State Warriors. They've won, 3 out of the last 4 years. Yeah. They're dominating in this particular era. And sure, they might be doing certain things that have never been done before, from an efficiency standpoint and whatnot. But we've seen dominance before in the NBA. So for people to bring up this whole thing of, ruining the NBA, I just don't see that happening.
I'll just say this quickly. Is if Kevin Durant didn't join the Warriors, I don't think they'd be so much hated on. I think, with Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond,
most of their players were drafted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think people would have a little bit more love for them. But then since KD joined them, I think people, want to make these comments and whatnot. Hey, they have to deal with it.
All right, guys. So switching gears, our second topic for our NBA segment here. NBA free agency is 11 days away. LeBron Raymond James is set to become an unrestricted free agent, being able to be in total control of his destiny. We'll just go ahead and call this LBJ decision 3.0. He's been here twice before. Let's just get right to it, guys. There's so many rumors circulating. Where do you guys see LeBron ending up? Is LA a slam dunk? Is staying in Cleveland even a consideration? There's talks about Philadelphia, this, that, and the other. Deems, what are your thoughts? Where basically, not so much where do you want to see him, maybe we'll discuss that after, but where do you see LeBron ending up? What's your prediction?
Well, when you hear about what people are saying, he's basically it's coming down to everyone saying that it's going to be a more of a family decision on him.
Right. He's at that point in his career, right?
Absolutely. So when you look at it, you really got to look at two factors. Does he want to stay in the East and continue being the dominant player that he is in the East?
And continue losing in the finals?
Correct. If that's the case, I see him staying in Cleveland.
Okay.
But if he ends up going to the West, I think the Lakers will get it done. I think he'll go there. He'll team up with a couple other guys.
Get what done exactly?
Him being in LA, not a championship.
Oh, okay.
Just to be clear. just to be clear. But I think he'll go to a big market team. He has a second home there. Makes sense for him.
Right.
He has LA all written all
I guess
over.
it's all a matter of at this point of his career, obviously going to his 16th season, what's his main consideration, his main factor in terms of, is it, chasing more championships, if you want to use that term? Is it, family life? Is he trying to set himself up for after basketball? Obviously, the whole factor of his kid. Apparently his son is enrolled in LA, although I don't know if that's been confirmed. What are your thoughts, Adwin? Where do you see this ending up? And I'm sure we'll get a decision, probably early in July rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. I do think if he stays in the East, which I highly doubt, he will stay in Cleveland. If he goes to the West, he'll end up in LA. I think LeBron's at a point right now in his career, and I don't know him, so I don't know this firsthand, but my perception is that I feel as though he's starting to turn the page on what does he actually want to accomplish personally for his life and for his family. With everything he's doing with his movie company and his kids, LA obviously makes the most sense. Staying in Cleveland, it would be really, I don't know why he would do that, to be quite honest. And I've been to Cleveland. There's really no reason for him to stay there anymore. And anybody else in the East, what's really going to be the difference? We all know what the result's going to be, unfortunately, when it comes to who's winning championships for the next 3 years. So really and truly, I think he's going to make a personal decision.
I don't see there's any chance that he goes to the Celtics. Kyrie Irving just does not want to play with that guy.
But you could possibly trade Kyrie.
That's true.
If that's a possibility.
Yeah, for me, I would say this is kind of a tough one. To me, LeBron has always been about wanting to win championships. And, that's why he left Cleveland in the first place to go to Miami. And that's why he went back home to win a ring. Now, you got to ask yourself, he's going into his 16th season, and you have to put yourself in his big shoes. What do I want to be known for in the last 3 to 4 years of my career? Do I have a legitimate chance of catching Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan in rings? Do I want to make more movies and be a bigger basketball or bigger star outside of basketball? I really feel like he's going to stay in Cleveland. He just dragged this team to the NBA Finals. Think about this team. If Dan Gilbert and GM Kobe Allman are able to get him even just a little bit more help, they're going to be favored probably to go back to the finals along with Boston. If he wants a shot at the Warriors out west, I would say his best bet is going to the Houston Rockets. Joining forces with CP3, who's already on record and saying, this is going to be the biggest thing he's ever done in the NBA is try to recruit LeBron James, Harden. They'll take the pressure off him, and he won't be required to play so many minutes as well. Here's my problem with the Lakers. Even if he joins forces with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, I don't think they are better than Golden State, and maybe not even better than Houston. They absolutely have no shooting, and the Lakers are probably without Kuzma and Ingram.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? They're going to have to be a part of a Kawhi deal. So who's going to be your long gunner? Lonzo Ball? Really? You're going to bring LeVar Ball on the court? I don't know. It'll all depend on who they get to surround him and Kawhi and Paul George and the Lakers. But I just don't like that situation for him. I think he should either stay in Cleveland or go to Houston.
Yeah, so my thing is this. I think that the Houston Rockets, and that's been floated around, and apparently what's coming out lately, this isn't any kind of big breaking news, but LeBron, as we know, he's very close friends with Chris Paul. Sure. Apparently Chris Paul, he's even closer with Chris Paul than he is with Dwayne Wade. They're really,
boy.
Oh, yeah, they're best buds. But my thing is this. First of all, I don't think Houston needs LeBron James. I really don't. And I think that LeBron James, and I'm going to go out and say this, I'll put this on record, I actually think that LeBron would make the Houston Rockets a worse team. They would be worse. Think about where they are from a salary cap standpoint. They would pretty much have to gut their roster. What makes them very unique is obviously their shooting. You have, their two main stars. You have Chris Paul and James Harden. But Clint Capella, the way that he controls things defensively in the paint, their outside shooting, you got Eric Gordon, you have PJ Tucker. You're going to have to get rid of at least two of these guys. Possibly
they'll
three.
Need to shed that Ryan Anderson contract as well.
I just don't see that happening. I just don't see them having a complete complementary team of shooters and defenders.
Right.
Adding LeBron James, especially you think of the fact that LeBron, he's never indicated or given any indication that he wants to take or he'd be willing to take a pay cut. Same thing with CP3. He said, he wants to have his max contract as well, which he deserves, right?
I disagree with you, Hez. I think that in your statement, every team except for the Warriors needs a LeBron James. Like, who can't use that guy?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I
just think it's not worth the risk.
Absolutely. You're going to have to gut your roster a little bit. I do agree with that, but
here's another point I'll bring up as well with the Houston Rockets. Can you honestly, and I would seriously consider this, if I was LeBron James, can you honestly trust Chris Paul in the clutch, and I'm not talking about his performance, I'm talking about his health.
Right.
Has Chris Paul demonstrated over the last couple of years that he can actually be on the court when needed? A lot of people still have, and I touched on it earlier, this notion that if he was healthy, they could have won or closed out that series. I still think they would have lost, but either way, you have a much better shot. I'll actually go as far as to say I don't think they would have shot, 1 for 30 in that three from behind the arc if Chris Paul as the general was on the court. So, but I just don't trust him in terms of him being able to stay healthy.
Trust J.R. Smith with the ball in his hand in 5 seconds. That's another question.
So that's an interesting point there. So listen, guys, real quick. So last week, Shaquille O'Neal, he basically said that LeBron shouldn't be chasing rings at this point of his career, and that more championships won't change his legacy. I'll start with you, Adwin. What were your thoughts on that statement?
I agree. I've talked about this with you many times. I don't think it will change his legacy. We keep using championships as kind of the measurement for, the greatest basketball player on earth or whatever it may be. I mean, if he doesn't win the championship from this day on, you can't say and argue that he's not one of the best basketball players, if not the best basketball ever. So it doesn't change his legacy. And that's why I say, and I really do think he's going to end up in LA. Houston, and I know I called you on this initially right after the finals ended, would be a good spot for him if he wants to go out and legitimately try to compete for championships. Right. But it's too risky because you can't beat. Golden State is going to be hard to beat. They're only going to get better. And I think he's going to try to do something else with his career for these last 2-3 years, however much longer he has. So I think his legacy is cemented. Now it's about how do you want to finish your career.
Yeah, you make some good points there, Adwin. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I mentioned it earlier about him possibly going to Hollywood and, pursuing acting. He's already been in a couple of movies before and whatnot. So there's also big life outside of basketball for him. His family's comfortable there. They own a couple of properties out there. So it's going to be interesting. It all starts Canada Day, July the 1st, right?
Yeah.
Star shine the brightest in LA.
Who's really going to beat Golden State Warriors in the next 2 years? To me, I just don't see it.
I agree.
The way it is, it's not happening.
I would say a healthy Boston Celtics team probably gives them a run. I really do. I mean, I think that team defensively, coaching-wise,
if they're healthy,
if they have Hayward and Irving together with that nucleus, I think they give them a run. I think they can push Golden State like no other team.
That I will agree with. I will honestly say that for LeBron, in terms of his decision, I don't see there's any one team or any combination, if he's going to team up with Kawhi or a Paul George or this and that he can go on. I just don't see any particular scenario where I would be like, okay, this group of guys, this talent, can even come close to matching the Golden State Warriors. Because with the Warriors, you also have to consider it's not so much just their talent, it's their system, it's their camaraderie, the fact they've been together for 4+ years. Yeah, the chemistry, the unselfishness. You can go literally on and on and on. There's so many things that make them, special. But even from a talent standpoint, I mean, you arguably have two of the best shooters in the history of the game. You have a guy like Kevin Durant, who is arguably the best offensive player possibly of all time in terms of the various ways that he can score on the basketball court and his ball handling, his size. I mean, they're just so unique, something that we've really never seen before.
Let's not forget about JaVale McGee.
JaVale McGee! But guys, I will say real quick before we wrap this up, the only issue that I had actually personally with Shaq's statement is this whole concept of chasing rings, because traditionally the whole, notion, wherever this term came from, ring chasing or whatever the case, it's more for, guys who are, role players or guys who are at the tail end of their career, and that whole, riding on coattails and whatever the case. A guy like LeBron, I mean, it is surprising, he's in his 15th going on to his 16th year. He's still at the top of his game.
He's going to be the man wherever he goes.
Yeah, he arguably had the best offensive year of his career in his 15th season. So wherever LeBron goes, I would never consider him a ring chaser. He's always going to be that guy. So that's the only issue I had with Shaq's thing. But I do agree with you, Ab, in that, and with Shaq as well. More rings isn't going to necessarily change anything. But I will say this, if he does stay in the East, if he continues to lose in the finals, I don't think that will necessarily change his legacy. But I will say, and I think I've said this before, it's just not necessarily the best look. I mean, on paper, going whether it's 3-8, 3-7, it's just not necessarily the best look. But either way, I mean, when it's all said and done, if you don't put LeBron in the top 3 or even top 5 in NBA history, something is wrong. He's had an amazing career, and we definitely look forward to seeing how it all comes to an end. You want to get the last word, Adwin?
Well, I was just going to ask you, what was your prediction for where he's going to end up?
Oh, I didn't share my thoughts. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. You know what? Honestly, I'm going to side with Milo on this because this is actually the same thing that I said, months ago, even before we actually launched Toronto Talk Sports, where I said I don't necessarily see too many scenarios of LeBron leaving and abandoning Cleveland once again. And I do agree that if they're able to make some roster moves and add, another solid, piece and, get a little bit more shooting to surround LeBron because he does really well when he's surrounded by perimeter shooters. I think that he's comfortable there. That's his home. I honestly do feel that in the future that possibly there's going to be a situation where Gilbert will end up selling the team to LeBron. LeBron will end up owning the Cavs in the future. So that's what I've kind of thought over the past few months. So until I hear anything new, all these rumors, the Lakers, this and that, there's no place like home. I don't necessarily see him abandoning again. But guys, July the 1st, things open up. We'll wait and see what happens. Been a great segment. Deems, thanks so much for joining us in studio. Adwin, thanks for joining us on the line. You guys are welcome anytime. Toronto Talk Sports and more. Basketball talk. Let's do it again. So we're going to switch gears with our NBA talk and discuss this whole Kawhi Leonard saga. Courtz is back here with us, and we're also very pleased to be joined on the phone by Mr. George Clarke, a huge sports fan, a very loyal listener to the show here at TTS. George, what's going on, brother?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm happy to be on here.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us, man. So listen, let's get right to it. In last year's NBA playoffs, Kawhi missed 4 out of the Spurs' last 5 playoff games due to a sprained left ankle. Shout out to Zaza Cheap Shot, as Skip Bayless likes to call him. He eventually recovered from that injury. He went on to injure his quad right before this past postseason, so in the preseason. He played in only 9 games this past season from mid-December to mid-January. On January the 17th, the Spurs announced that Kawhi would be out indefinitely, and basically he hasn't seen the playing court since then. He's been back and forth from New York. He goes to get his rehab done, second opinion. Whole bunch of reports have come out over the last little while. It's just been a huge mess on both sides between Kawhi's camp and obviously with the San Antonio Spurs. Last week, it was basically released that Kawhi is angry at the Spurs, for how they handled the whole situation and some of the comments that were made by Greg Popovich as well as Tony Parker, perhaps others. And basically, he's requested a trade with his preferred destination, LA. Obviously, we're guessing the Lakers. I didn't necessarily say which team, but I mean, if you're going to LA, you're going to the Lakers. So once again, all these different reports, and it seems like something new is developed every day with this particular story. What do you guys make out of this? What's really going on, and how is this all going to end, George?
Well, a recent report came out just this morning that Kawhi Leonard will definitely go to LA. He's essentially said that to all his trade suitors, he still plans to go to LA in 2019.
That's right, yes.
So, I mean, if I'm a San Antonio Spurs fan, I'm upset. I mean, this is the first, in recent memory at least, most high-profile San Antonio Spur to really do something like this of this magnitude. It's actually pretty sad, really, if you think about, just their whole methodology around excellence and, doing the right thing. But, at the end of the day, it sort of begs the question now, which teams would actually take the risk on a one-and-done year with Kawhi Leonard? Because now he wants to go to L.A. He's from LA. He's from the California area.
Right.
He wants to go to LA. Great for endorsements. Now his Jordan brand is going to be through the roof, and he's already huge in China. So from a business perspective, it makes sense.
Yes, but check this out. So I guess the question is, we know that he's going to obviously end up in LA, or supposedly he's going to end up in LA, but will it be this offseason? Will it be 2019? According to Chris Sheridan of GetMoreSports.com, the Spurs have basically said that there's no way that they're trading Kawhi to a Western Conference team. No way. And in fact, they said, according to the report, that they're willing to accept less just to keep him out of the Western Conference. Milo.
Yeah, for me, I would never underestimate the power of a guy like Danny Ainge. Boston, they are set up for success and to be the best team in the Eastern Conference for many years to come, along with the Philadelphia 76ers. And if they have the most assets, let's face it, they can package a deal with Jaylen Brown, possibly even Kyrie Irving, to bring Kawhi Leonard there. And if they get to the NBA Finals or even win a championship, who's to say that Kawhi or Danny Ainge would be able to say, hey, Kawhi, listen, we just won a championship, we just got to the finals or whatnot. Stay here. We're going to build a foundation around you. So that could possibly change his mind. But I do see him
I'm so glad you just said that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And,
so glad.
Yeah, but I do end up seeing him going to LA in 2019 when he does become a free agent.
But just not this year.
But just not this year. I don't think he will end up in LA. Maybe with the Clippers. Jerry West came out and there's a report saying that he's offering a lot of picks and players. So maybe Greg
But if you
Popovich
don't
wins.
have a firm commitment from him in terms of him re-signing, are you really willing to give up assets just to acquire him for a year? Especially in the case of the Clippers, who aren't even close to contending.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. We all know that Greg Popovich, he does not want to help out a fellow Western Conference team.
Absolutely. And sorry to cut you off, the course. If I can just say one thing. If you guys will recall, I'm so bad with years, might have been 2008, 2009, when the Lakers acquired Pau Gasol. Greg Popovich went on record. He was pissed. He was like, why would you guys strengthen the Lakers? Why would you trade? Why would he was upset with the Grizzlies for trading Pau Gasol to the Los Angeles Lakers. And we know how that worked out. They ended up winning a couple of chips.
That being said, I just don't see Kawhi being traded to any Western Conference team. Although he did say today that if he does, wherever he does end up going in 2019, he will sign with the LA Lakers. But from any other team's perspective, whether it be the Boston Celtics or anybody else in the East, like your point, Milo, are we really going to risk acquiring someone like Kawhi Leonard, knowing that it might just be a one-and-done deal?
Right.
From a team's perspective, I can't, give up all those assets just to get somebody who's not willing to commit to my team.
I would even say that a team like the Raptors have a lot to offer, right? They could offer a Kyle or DeMar and a bunch of young players. But again, is Masai willing to take that risk?
Does Kawhi want to play in Toronto? Outside of America, outside of, it seems pretty dead set in LA. But to you, George, I'll just ask this from the San Antonio Spurs perspective. In terms of Kawhi, from his standpoint, he's angry, he's upset, his people aren't happy with the way the Spurs have handled the situation. Obviously, Tony Parker, he kind of chimed in there in terms of, he had a similar injury. I believe he said his injury was 100 times worse. Popovich made some comments as well. So it doesn't seem like they were as supportive, when Kawhi was out, once again, going to New York, getting a second opinion, this, that, and the other. So what culpability do the Spurs have in this particular situation, George? And does Kawhi have a point that basically the Spurs mistreated him in this particular situation? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Spurs should accept 100% of the responsibility.
100%? Okay, tell 100%. Us what.
Well, let's think about it. Let's look at Steph Curry. Let's look at LeBron James. Look at KD. James Harden, DeMarcus Cousins, Anthony Davis.
Quite frankly, I'd rather look at women, but okay. Go ahead.
These are all players that have missed extensive time with injuries. Chris Paul, right?
Right.
You would never see their coach or their player or teammate say anything negative about it. Nothing but support. Gordon Hayward has been gone since the first quarter of the first game of the season, and the Boston Celtics and the entire organization has done nothing but embrace him and the road to recovery.
Right. So I would say, and I think there is some culpability on the part of the Spurs. From Kawhi Leonard's side, it would appear, and obviously this is just our observation, we're not in there, we don't know exactly what's going on, but it doesn't seem like he's the best communicator in terms of really, expressing, what's going on and how he's feeling, this, that, and the other. Yeah, that whole breakdown of communication between his camp and the Spurs. I think he has to accept some responsibility for that.
Yeah, I would say that, both parties are to blame, but, they're kind of, the Spurs remind you a lot of like a Patriots organization where they keep everything very hush-hush, right? They don't want news to leak. They don't want
Class A organization.
Yeah, and nothing negative said about them and whatnot.
Yeah, they don't have any Spygate or anything like that.
No, nothing like that, right? So
Deflate
Greg Popovich, he's fuming inside about this right now. RC Buford, their GM, the same way. But I think the deal's got to get done. He's got to be moved. I don't see them necessarily rushing. I think they're going to hold on. They're going to drag this out after the draft, after free agency, when all the dominoes fall, and then they're going to make their move probably late July, early August, I would say.
So let me throw this out to you, Courtz. This is another angle, another way to look at this situation. So correct me if I'm wrong. Kawhi Leonard is still under contract, right, guys? He's under contract for another year. So what about this whole concept of guys who are still under contract, flexing their muscle in terms of determining where they want to go and how they, maybe how much they want to get paid or this and that, pretty much taking their destiny, controlling their destiny, when isn't that supposed to be reserved for unrestricted free agents? So if we go back to last year, it was a similar situation with Kyrie Irving. He requested a trade from the Cleveland Cavaliers. Look how that ended up for them. They basically agreed to, trade him. They traded him to Boston. They strengthened Boston. They weakened their team. team. It ended up being a horrible trade. They ended up getting, we know what they got in return. They ended up shipping those guys out at the trade deadline. So what about this potential can of worms that this is opening up for owners and GMs, for, once again, players who are under contract, for them basically taking control of the situation and dictating where they want to go while they're under contract?
Well, definitely. I mean, from a player standpoint, we're not happy with the situation. As we know, with Kyrie last year, he wasn't happy playing under LeBron's shadow, so he wanted to get out of there, even though he was still under contract. This year with Kawhi Leonard, for some people, it looks as though, of course, we don't know all the details, but for some outsiders, it looks as though Kawhi might have just quit on the San Antonio Spurs. We never really saw him.
Well, that's what Skip Bayless is calling him. He calls him a quitter.
Definitely. But of course, we don't know the full story. But in terms of him demanding a trade, I'm not a big fan of players, coming out demanding a trade. But at the end of the day, if you're not happy with the current situation, then yes, you're going to definitely want to trade. But like I said before, Greg Popovich, I don't think he's going to be in a rush to trade Kawhi. He's not just going to take the first deal that gets sent his way. He's going to be...
And from the team's perspective, it actually lowers your value, your trade value. If you make it public that you want to be traded, and especially you want to go to a particular team, your value goes automatically way down. And in the case of Kawhi Leonard, that even just a couple years back, people were debating, him being a top 3 player in the NBA. So he's, in my opinion, he still has a lot to prove. And you brought it up, that whole mental toughness. Was he legitimately injured? Was he, did he quit on the team? So there's a lot of things going on. I don't know if I would take that risk if I'm an NBA owner and GM. I don't know.
I'll just say one thing quickly about that is Court's brought up a good point there. It's a current situation. When you sign a 5-year, 4-year deal with a team, you're happy, you're excited, you're into a new situation or whatnot. But 2, 3, 4 years down the road, things happen.
Things happen. Yeah.
Changes happen.
Right, life changes.
Yeah, life, and not only just basketball wise, life changes. Maybe you're sick of the city. Maybe there's current people in the city that are bad mouthing or whatever the case may be. Maybe the roster changes. So for Kawhi Leonard, he's won a championship with the Spurs, got to the finals, lost, but now things are just maybe he's not happy with the current structure of the team, and it's not just all about the injury and how that was handled. Right.
For sure, George. We'll give the last word to you as we wrap this up.
Well, at the end of the day, Kawhi Leonard is also showing a little bit of ambition here on his part, right? He's leaving an organization that breeds on excellence, where that if you perform at your highest level and everyone does around you, there's a good chance that you could still make it to the NBA final. Now he's looking for more of the limelight. He's focusing more on his brand, and he really wants to start this thing all over again, have a team be built around him, and prove that he can build a team and bring them to the promised land. And
certainly.
So, I don't see a problem with him wanting to leave, because the situation was mishandled very poorly. If this is your best player, your franchise player, the player that's expected to take you to the finals every year, you have to be with him every step of the way.
Sure.
You can't, bash him in any way. You can't undermine him or challenge him in any way. This is your franchise player.
Yep.
This is your A1 player. This is the guy that's going to take the final shot for you, that's going to make the final possession on defense for you, and hit the free throw to win the game.
I guess from the Spurs' perspective, perhaps the only reason why they were making, those public comments against him was the fact that maybe they weren't able to contact him, and that was their only way of kind of communicating and kind of, putting certain things on the table, because there were rumors and things going around that perhaps the Spurs, mistreated the whole situation, and maybe that was their way of letting the public know, hey, this is what it is. But either way, it's a mess. We don't know how it's going to end up. I think we will all agree that eventually he will end up in LA. We just don't know when. We'll see what happens. I agree with you, Milo. I think trading him in the East is the best thing for the Spurs, and I would certainly love to see him in Boston. I think if they were able to work out a situation there, and they certainly have a lot of assets to trade. But guys, this has been great. George, thank you so much once again for joining us. Thanks for all your support, and we know you listen to the show on a regular basis, so we appreciate that. You're welcome to join us anytime, and we look forward to featuring you again, brother.
Thank you guys for having me. It was great. I can't wait to talk more basketball.
Thanks,
awesome, guys. So, guys, this does it for our NBA wrap-up. Do stay tuned. Actually, tomorrow, or, when the podcast does air, will be Thursday, the 21st. It is the NBA draft, so the draft coming up. So perhaps we'll discuss that on next week's show. We have free agency, as we mentioned, coming up July the 1st, so right around the corner. Lots of exciting basketball stuff to talk over the next little while. Thanks once again for tuning in. Thanks for joining us, guys. Toronto Talk Sports and more.
Milo back here with Hez, and Hez is going to switch gears here. We're going to do an open sports roundtable here on Toronto Talk Sports. Essentially what we do here is we open it up, the discussion on different types of sports that we haven't touched on yet. So we're going to talk a little bit of baseball, a little bit of World Cup, and we're actually going to get into something very interesting, a little NFL football. You know, we both love the NFL.
Oh, yes.
With a debate brewing. We're going to get into that as well. So let's start with the Blue Jays, the hometown team, Toronto Blue Jays. On the field, they haven't been as impressive as people have hoped. Obviously, with the Yankees and Red Sox, it's tough to compete when you're not spending that type of money. But there has been some off-the-field issues with them, and it starts with Roberto Osuna. He had his first court day on Monday, which he didn't show up to. Obviously, he was charged with assault and domestic battery on a woman. But do you see Roberto playing another game for the Blue Jays this year?
Do I see him playing another game in the Major League Baseball? Yeah. It's going to be tough. The disclosure apparently was given to his counsel in this week's court appearance. I don't believe too many of the contents were made public yet from what I've heard, so we don't necessarily know the full details of the allegations, but apparently they're serious enough for the league to continue to put him on this, what are they calling it, leave of absence or whatever it is. So we'll wait and see, exactly what the information is. I mean, his counsel does seem pretty adamant that he's going to be, pleading not guilty. So, I mean, apparently he has some kind of a defense or whatever it is. It doesn't look like he's looking to plea, although that could change. But to your question in terms of do I see him playing again this year, I mean, that depends. What I'll say is this. The MLB it definitely has a history, perhaps unlike other leagues, of really taking a serious stance in domestic violence issues. So I wouldn't be surprised, once it's all said and done. I don't know exactly how it works, if he absolutely needs to be convicted in order for them to kind of, lay the Hamlet down and, give him a suspension. But, we've seen in the past, they haven't been afraid of, giving guys very hefty suspensions for, any kind of off-field. Absolutely. I was just about to say altercation. So I don't necessarily see him coming back this year. It just seems like things just keep on delaying and delaying. I don't know when the case is going to be resolved. We'll see what happens, but I don't see it.
Yeah, not only the MLB, but the Blue Jays. Do they want to have any more affiliations with this guy?
That's another thing.
And so it'll be interesting to see.
And he's young as well. He's still very young. Yeah. Great young arm in terms of what he brings off out of the bullpen. It's just unfortunate. And even before this particular incident, you remember last year there were certain issues. He had to take a little bit of time off. He took his own leave of absence, actually, due to mental health concerns and whatnot. So there are other lingering issues. You really wonder, does he perhaps need some time away from the game to perhaps seek some treatment and, take care of whatever skeletons might be in his closet. So, yeah.
Well, on the field, Marcus Stroman is scheduled to make his return from the disabled list
this
Saturday against the Los Angeles Angels. And although he's had a terrible season so far, he's really struggled, the ERA and wins and losses wise. Do you see him turning things around?
Well, he's a great pitcher. Once he's, in the zone and he's focused, we've seen what he's done in the past. So hopefully this time away, which obviously wasn't what he wanted in terms of the injury, but hopefully, it's a long season. So you know how baseball works. You get off to a slow start, you end things on a positive. So hopefully that's the case. Hopefully he's fully recovered from his injury and he can come back and help to, get the Jays some wins. I don't know how much that's going to do in terms of, standings and seating or whatnot.
And that's my next point. My next question is, what do you expect from the Jays moving forward? For me personally, I just mentioned the Yankees, the Red Sox, they are the teams to beat in the AL East. They spend the big money. The Yankees got Giancarlo Stanton now. The Red Sox are doing their thing. What can we realistically expect, Blue Jays fans?
Hey, listen, unless you're doing not even a good but an excellent job of drafting young prospects, you really got to spend money. So you have, whether it's acquiring guys in the off season or trading and getting guys who are big name guys. But in order to compete, particularly in the AL East, you have to spend. Rodgers has never necessarily made that commitment. To spend, the type of money that's needed to compete with the big boys. Yeah, they've been somewhat competitive the last few years, not including so much last year, but in years past, recent years past. But I just don't expect anything really much from the Jays at this particular time.
Maybe bring back Joey Bats.
It's unfortunate, and even that whole thing with him in Atlanta there. And where is he now? He went to
the Mets,
the Mets. Yeah. To me, that's another unfortunate thing. Just kind of seeing a guy of his stature just kind of bounce around. The tail end of his career. I would have loved to see him, him finish his career off in Toronto. Sure. It just wasn't meant to be, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, go Jays, go. Hopefully they finish the season on a strong note. Still a lot of games to be played, but you want to see them be competitive and give Jays fans something to be excited
Absolutely.
about. Right? Let's switch up to the World Cup. The World Cup kicked off, Hezzy, last Thursday. The star of the World Cup so far has been Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo. He has scored 4 goals in 2 games. What are your thoughts on his level of play so far?
Well, listen, nothing, it's not surprising whatsoever. Actually, first of all, let me just say this. I'm not the biggest soccer fan out there. I've actually made more of a concentrated effort, largely in part to the fact that, we're doing this whole, sports platform and whatnot. I have to kind of stay engaged with all the major sports. Right. And it really doesn't get any bigger than the World Cup. So I have been tuning in and watching some games, but it's something that I'm going to need to continue to personally do in order to properly, speak on this particular sport. But yeah, I did see the last game, and today's game actually, where he scored that goal early in the frame there, and he's just been amazing. He's an amazing athlete. Just the way you watch him, even just run up and down the field, great shape. He is getting, a little older, but you don't really notice it. He's
say this might be his final World Cup, but
quite
if
possibly.
He's definitely going out with a bang.
Let's see how far they can get.
And that was do you see Portugal going far in this tournament? I mean, they're 2-0 now. They're into the next stage, 16 teams. Where can they end up? Can they win this whole thing?
Well, listen, obviously anything can happen. Nothing is predictable. I think on our first show, on our last show when we were kind of discussing the World Cup, we were kind of saying Brazil is likely to be favored to win. I think that's what Pratt, our studio guest, was mentioning last time, and I kind of agreed. But anything can happen. And it's all a matter of, can guys, especially your star guys, can they stay healthy? And it also is going to determine on matchups, who's going against who. And, there's always that luck factor as well. It's not like basketball and, these other fast-paced sports. So many things can happen through the course of a soccer match. You don't necessarily even have to get, a lot of shots on net to, be productive. And, so there's that luck factor there. We'll have to kind of wait and see.
And I also got a new favorite
happens.
team I'm going for. I'm going for Senegal. I like those guys, man. They play
Senegal. Well, what's up with Senegal?
They won yesterday, 2-1 over Poland. And
they did.
Yeah, they came out with a big victory. I just like the way that energy the team put. And actually, their coach looks a lot like Courtz. I was mentioning that to him earlier. I think it's like his twin brother or something like that.
Oh, boy.
Just closing out with the soccer segment, defending champion Germany lost their first match 1-0 to Mexico.
That was a big upset.
Yeah, it was a huge upset. And even Argentina the other day finished in a tie, so that could be considered an upset. But in the Group D, they have a huge game tomorrow against Croatia. How do you see that one going? Messi, yeah. How's Messi going to do? And do you see the Argentines finally winning a game?
Well, I would say it's a must-win game. They have to win that game against Croatia, and they're favored. They should come out on top. But once again, so much can happen in one match. There is a lot of luck. But they're the better team. They should finally get their first victory of the tournament, and go Argentina.
There you go. So we're going to switch up to the NFL, the National Football League. It's been a little bit quiet around the NFL. Not too much news right now, but I'm sure things are going to pick up as training camp and things like that open up in the following months. But the Madden 19 player ratings came out this week, and our guy Aaron Rodgers led the pack with a rating of 99, while terrible Tom Brady was a mere 97. There's been a lot of controversy over this, right? And Tom has been often labeled as a system quarterback. However, he has put up historic figures in his career. I know he's your favorite quarterback on your favorite team, including 5 Super Bowl championships. He's also lost 3 Super Bowls, 2 to Eli Manning and 1 to a backup quarterback.
Oh, my bloody goodness.
I'd remind you of that. But Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, has only won 1 Super Bowl and has never lost to a backup quarterback. So let's set the record straight. Who's the best quarterback in the game right now? Would you rather have Tom Brady or would you have Aaron Rodgers?
So here's my thing, and I'm a Packers fan as well. Aaron Rodgers, let me go on record right now. Aaron Rodgers is my 3rd favorite quarterback in the league, behind Drew Brees, and then, of course, Tom Brady being number 1. In terms of who's the best, there's a big gap in terms of age. I believe they're 6 years apart. Tom Brady's, I think he's turning 41, and Rodgers, he'll be 36.
Right.
So, there's a pretty big gap there in terms of age. Who do I think is better? I mean, who was the MVP this past season?
Tom Brady.
That was Tom Brady.
Tom himself.
You could make the argument either way. I wouldn't say it's one of those things if someone wants to pick Rodgers and say, hey, I'd rather have him in a clutch situation, whatever the case. For me, I think it does go a lot in terms of, the full body of work and the amount of times that Brady has his Super Bowl appearances. So Brady's been there 8 times. He's 5-3.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers once. So, I mean, he did win his one time there. And I believe that year, I think it was 2011.
Don't do it.
I think he beat the Pittsburgh. Don't do it? The Steelers. Yes, your team lost to Aaron Rodgers in the Super Bowl.
Crushing defeat.
That was classic. That was amazing. And, of course, he was the MVP of the Super Bowl. I think you had to hand me quite a few shekels that time. But if it was me, to be quite frank, I'd still give it to Brady just in terms of the things that he's done in clutch situations all throughout, his career, particularly in the postseason and in the Super Bowl, and the amount of times that he's been there. Yes, you can make the argument that he's had a better supporting cast. He plays in a much better system, this, that, and the other. To me, that totally doesn't take anything away from Aaron Rodgers whatsoever. Amazing skill set. He's definitely a lot more athletic than Tom. I mean, let's just go ahead and give him that in terms of his running ability and his ability outside of the pocket. So it's a toss-up. It could go either way. But, I mean, if you look at just the amount of times that Brady, the success that Brady has had throughout his career, I just have to give it to Tom.
Yeah, and Tom Brady did a lot of great things this past year, and he brought the Patriots back a lot of times. So, I'm on your bus there. I think I'm going to go with Tom Brady. Give him the slight edge. Aaron Rodgers, to me, I think he's I don't want to use the word overrated, but I think he
don't go there.
Yeah, he does get a lot of hype that I don't think is deserved. He's been to one Super Bowl. What else has he done for you lately? I mean, the guy was injured last year. People are going to say, oh, yeah, he had a terrible defense and whatnot. But
he has. I mean, and he hasn't had, even from an offensive standpoint, he definitely hasn't had the supporting cast in terms of receivers and whatnot that Tom Brady has had.
These guys are pretty decent.
Well, he's had some good, but not great. And then some of those guys have also been injured the last little. Brady has definitely had more guns, more weapons offensively than Aaron Rodgers has had.
I can't stand both of them. If it was me, Big Ben Roethlisberger, baby. But no, this is a debate. I'm sure things are going to heat up during the season as well. I'm not sure if they play this year. I have to go back to check the schedule. But
let's look that up.
I think everybody's waiting for that dream Super Bowl, right? Patriots, Packers, Brady versus Rodgers.
That would be neat. I wouldn't mind that.
No, it wouldn't be, but we'll see what happens. But thanks for joining me here, Hez, on the Open Roundtable.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's always great to connect and talk about the sports that we don't really get into too much in the offseason.
Absolutely.
But we'll definitely be talking some NFL come September, right?
Sounds good, buddy.
All right. Toronto Talk Sports and more.
Welcome to another edition of And More on Toronto Talk Sports and More. This is where we discuss a wide variety of topics outside of sports. Usually it's an interview with a Toronto-based business owner, artist, or influencer. Today we are very pleased to welcome Melissa Chung from 6 Degrees Studio. She's been in the beauty industry for 10 years now. She started from the bottom, literally, in the basement of her parents' home. Now her and her business partners have a beautiful studio on the Danforth in Toronto. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, Melissa. Welcome.
Hi.
Awesome. Nice to see you. So let's talk a little bit about our history before we kind of get into things. Because you and I, we go way back. So back to elementary school, Agnes MacPhail. Yes, and you were in the same grade as my younger sister, Jasmine.
That's right.
I remember your mother. She was the lunch monitor, and she was such a sweet lady, Mrs. Chung. We used to just call her Mrs. Chung. How's mommy?
I hated her working there.
Wow. She was the nicest.
No, okay. If she listens to this, I'm sorry, Mom. I love you.
Embarrass you a bit?
No, okay. It wasn't that. It was everyone liked her more than they liked me.
Okay.
They were like, yeah, exactly. He's like, yeah, because and she's so embarrassing because I was bullied a lot in elementary school.
No.
For some
That I
reason.
didn't know.
I don't know why. I was nice.
Okay, maybe you were too nice.
She would go up to them if she knew someone didn't like me. Melissa's a really nice girl. You should give her a chance and talk to her. I'm like,
Mommy was
Mom.
defending you.
Yeah, and I'm like, Mom.
Well, that probably made you get bullied even more.
Yeah.
So I remember in elementary, as I said, your mother, she was a lunch monitor. There was another one, I think her name might have been, and Courtney's in studio with us here as well, Mrs. Bickers. Was there a teacher named Mrs. Bickers, lunch monitor? I'm pretty sure that was her name. Yeah. Whatever it was. Anyway.
You're going back like 50 years here.
Anyway, real quick story. I just remember one time I got in a lot of trouble. She was really mean, really nasty woman, and I called her the B word, and she basically...
Bickers?
Well, worse than that. And she chased me, and I actually ran home because our house was really right across the street from the school.
Oh, wow.
And she told my mom, and it was this crazy thing. I denied. I just totally just wouldn't admit it or whatever the case. I'll just never forget that. She was one of the lunch monitors. She worked alongside your mother. And but your mom, no, she was a complete opposite.
Yes.
Totally sweet lady. She was amazing. So the last time that you and I connected, Mel, was about 10 years ago. It was in 2008. Right. My wife and I, we were business owners. We owned a company called Manderheads Creations. We did our jewelry and whatnot. And we were invited on to do this show. It was called, I think it was Beauty Enhanced.
That's right.
It was a pilot TV series. It was makeup artists who were competing for some kind of prize, from what I can remember. And you were the host of the show. So I wasn't expecting to see you. You weren't expecting to see me. That was our first time kind of connecting since elementary. That was an interesting experience.
It was. I don't remember too much of the show.
The last 10 years have been
I
a blur.
remember seeing you for sure, and it was great. And your hair was different.
I probably had hair at that time. All I remember is I won't say his name because I'm not going to call anybody out, but we did a couple of tapings of the show. One of my very good friends, who's still a very good friend up to this day, he came to the taping because he was kind of an extended part of the Manderheads family in terms of our company. And I don't know if you know this, but he was completely obsessed with you.
No, really?
He totally wanted you. Is she single? You used to ask me, I'm like, guy, let's stay focused here on this business.
I didn't know that.
He was totally into you, whatever. I should probably not mention
sweet.
that. But
I'm blushing.
So basically, what have you been up to the last 10 years, Mel? What's new? What's happening?
Lord, a lot. Business, 2 kids.
2 kids.
That's business in itself, right?
Yeah, exactly. How old are they?
They are a lot more work than the actual business. I'll tell you that much.
How old are your kids?
6, and the other one's turning 5. So they're 13 months apart.
Okay.
Don't ever do that.
Wow. And are we married now, or what's going on over there? Let's get all up in our business, eh, Milo?
Yeah, that's it.
We're not married yet, but we're technically. It's been a 6-year engagement.
Basically, we're on our way there. We're on our way there.
6-year engagement.
Well, listen, you look great, Mel, and it's such a great pleasure to connect with you after so long. We're going to get into some stuff here. Definitely glad to have you on the show.
So, Melissa, it's great to have you on. But before we talk about your business, I hear you're a big sports fan, and this is Toronto Talk Sports.
Huge.
Earlier on in the show, we did touch on the LeBron James free agency.
Oh, yes.
So let's just ask you right away, where do you see LeBron playing next season?
Dun, 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 dun.
Well, where I would like him to see him play would be in Toronto, obviously, because I'm a LeBron fan. I have to say, yes.
I'll tell you this, Mel. LeBron is also a Toronto fan as well. He beats them every single time. He loves the Raptors.
I know, but I think players like to. Actually, I don't know if they would like to live here, but they like playing here.
He likes coming here every Caravana weekend. He's here.
Why not? Right? Yeah. Toronto's a great city, but I think he will end up in LA.
That's what rumors are
Lakers.
Pointing towards.
Yes, not the Clippers, the Lakers. That's where I see him going. It's and LA is great too. The weather's amazing. Yeah. They definitely make sure they go where the weather's nice.
Yeah, he doesn't want no snow anymore. I think he's sick of the snow in Cleveland. So.
Do you remember when the All-Star weekend?
Yeah.
Oh yes, 2 years back. Yes.
Can you believe the weather that weekend?
Oh, it was.
We
were about to
35.
show the world or the NBA world that Toronto is the place to be.
It was like minus 35 the whole
and
year.
all of a sudden, Mother Nature was like,
chill.
Bam! No.
Basically, we really lived up to the name We the North.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
So speaking of We the North and basketball in Toronto, so what about the Raptors? What were basically your thoughts on how the Raptors season ended once again at the hands of LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers? How disappointed were you sitting on your couch watching them lose 4 straight?
They were undefeated. Like they were the best.
Well, they had the best record in the Eastern Conference.
Right.
Yeah,
they were the best in the East, and they just. It's something with LeBron. It's like their kryptonite. Like as soon as they see LeBron, their knees get weak. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like where we can't do it.
That game-winning shot that was game 3.
And I think with sports and any sport you play, it's mind. over matter.
Psychological.
You know what I mean? When your mind is not right, you cannot play properly.
Agreed.
And LeBron has something with the Raptors mindset.
Yes,
and it's just they just fall apart.
I agree with you. That whole mental aspect of the game,
all
and
mental.
I think that's
With
what
any
separated, even a guy like Michael Jordan from all the others that maybe had similar
But you can even
skill
see
set,
LeBron when he
mental
plays.
toughness.
When he said, "I'm gonna win," he doesn't care who's on that court.
Yeah.
He's gonna win.
It's something about the bright lights at the Air Canada Center that just gets him going. And his teammates too. His teammates played awesome against the Raptors, right?
And they just want to prove something, right? And then the Raptors fall apart all the time. And that'll only change if LeBron goes. And I think he's
He's got to go west, right?
That's the only way we'll get out of the Eastern Conference.
So we'll definitely see what transpires. We'll stay tuned to that, as we were saying earlier. July the 1st, free agency. A lot's going to happen, a lot of rumors and stuff, but certainly we'll have some movement in the next little while. So 6 Degrees Studio.
Yes.
So let's talk about your business. Let's talk company. Tell us about your business. What exactly do you do? What is 6 Degrees all about? What's going on there, Mel?
Well, it started off with just eyelash extensions. I don't know if you know what that is, men, but
I think we've heard of eyelash extensions.
We're all wearing them right now.
It's actually very
my
popular.
eyes are naturally long. My lashes are naturally
Yeah, women pay a lot of good
to
money
look
for
like
that.
me. Yes, they do.
And they're curly
Holla.
too. No, it started off with that, and it's been great. We've been in business for about 10 years.
Okay. And you did start in your basement, as I mentioned.
did,
You kind of started in your...
I literally started from the bottom.
Right.
Worked in my parents' basement. I said to my dad, I'm like, Dad, and 10 years ago, he had no idea what eyelash extensions were. Well, I was like, Dad, I'm going to start this business, and I'm going to do it in the basement. And he's this old China Trini man. And he's like, what's this thing for? And I said, Dad, trust me, it's gonna do well, and it's going to boom, right? You're having women in my house. I don't know.
Oh, boy.
Shouldn't you be happy about that?
At first, he was like, he didn't understand it. But when he seen all the pretty girls walking every day, he became my personal greeter.
Okay.
It was his goal to know every client's name.
Did he treat them to doubles?
And he had pumpkin pie for them when he
Pumpkin
came
pie,
in.
okay.
Green tea. He loved it. So yeah, I worked from 8 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the morning some nights.
On the hustle.
Literally hustled morning till night.
Awesome. Yeah, nice
Didn't
to
see
hear.
the day of light. Yeah.
That's okay. You put in the work, and now it's paying off, right?
Exactly.
So I was on your website earlier, browsing around, and I just noticed that the name stands out to me. So what's the story behind your business name, 6 Degrees Studio?
So I had to think of a name within like weeks. Like days. It was like, what do we name this thing? And literally everyone, all my clients, they've come from someone who's known someone who's known someone who's known someone. And I think that was kind of like the 6 degrees of separation.
Right.
And it's funny, every time I have a client in there, they'll see someone else in there and they're like, hey, how are you? And they know someone who knows someone who knows someone.
So you're like the original 6 because, Toronto just got that name thanks
exactly.
to our good friend Drake. And now...
Right on.
Well, I think we came after him, but
okay.
But it's also too with the 6, it was from it's representing
For
Toronto.
the love of the 6.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So why this specific line of work in terms of beauty? I mean, why not makeup artistry, which is really popular? Why?
Well, we've added a couple of other things.
So you do that as well?
Yeah, we do.
Tell us everything. What do you do?
We do like the eyelash extensions, microblading, facials, nails, and we have like different contractors that do come in, like such as makeup and hair and Botox and all that fun stuff.
Okay.
And do you cater to men as well as women?
Oh, absolutely. And I think
We offer
you
the
men that are listening should come by and get a facial done or your nails done. Women love a man with good skin and nice nails.
You know what's interesting, and yes, definitely men should, we should beautify ourselves, from time to time, and, that's a good thing.
Turning me on. No,
So I was on your site as well, and it's so interesting. So I'll admit, probably just within the last maybe 2 years, I finally figured out, because I was always hearing Brazilian wax, what is this thing all about, whatever the case. So how did this become such a thing, such a popular thing, like waxing? Like, where did this originate? Where did this start from?
Waxing. Well, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it's nice to be clean down
Yeah,
there.
I would imagine.
agree.
Let's talk, guys. We're open. Let's talk.
And there are manzillions, if you guys didn't know.
That I was not aware of. That
so
is
you guys can completely
interesting.
I've heard of cougars and manthers, but not.
yeah, manzillions, guys, where you can get everything waxed off.
Okay, good to know.
So it's very interesting. In our opening segment, we were talking about penises, and now here we are talking about. This has been a really interesting show.
Our show is no longer PG.
I hope Mom doesn't listen to this one. Oh boy.
So Melissa, on your site, you have waxing, threading, microblading, facial. What would you say is your favorite component of the business?
Well, I think the most popular one in our studio is the eyelashes, because that's what we started doing. So most people do come and do that, and it makes like it's like an instant eye lift for most women.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just so you don't have to wear makeup every day. You can wake up and look pretty.
Awesome. What would you say is perhaps the most stressful part of your job? Is there something about, that whole beauty industry that just kind of really irritates you? If you had to choose or pick one thing.
The job isn't stressful at all. Everyone's
maybe
really
client-wise,
happy.
you happen to have...
if they want an appointment, and there's no appointments to give them.
Okay, so they're really trying to, gotta squeeze me
during
in, squeeze me in.
high Christmas.
Oh, for sure.
Urbana. Oh my Lord.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, Valentine's Day. It's like trying to fit everyone in and schedule.
Right.
That's probably the most stressful thing.
Have you ever dealt with any celebrities?
Yeah, there's been a couple.
Name drop.
That's good.
There's been a couple in, and
So let me ask you this. What about this whole concept of, the natural movement? Because there are some men that prefer, and even women as well, that just rather than, going the whole route of, doing even whether it's makeup, lashes, the brows, whatever, I'm content with how I look naturally, and, all this stuff is just, look at it perhaps as a waste of time or whatever. What would you say to that? Is it just a preference?
My argument with that is I want my girlfriend to be natural and all this. But you men, okay, have you guys ever seen a natural? No, because you guys don't look at them twice. Okay, they have hair everywhere. Okay, where they don't need hair on their legs. That's natural. And have you ever smelled someone that's wearing natural deodorant?
Interesting.
I know. I'm sorry.
That doesn't work, eh?
No. And trust me, you guys wouldn't if a girl doesn't groom her eyebrows properly, you guys don't.
You are absolutely correct.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You guys would be like, ew, gross. That's disgusting.
There's certain things that I would say I like. My wife, she's a big makeup. She's really great with makeup. She kind of, does all these she studies those YouTube tutorials and whatever. She's no makeup artist per se, but the way she does her makeup, and she always gets, props and credit from other people.
I think it's important.
But to me, sometimes I just don't think all that is necessary per se. But if it makes a woman happy and, she's not overdoing it like
I think it's important for a woman to look beautiful both naturally and with makeup, right?
100%.
Not saying she needs makeup all the time, but, she can wake up in the morning.
But I guess the question is, do you need to, in terms of, the inner beauty, do you need to, have that beautiful outer look in order to feel, inside?
Right.
That's.
With me, if I look good, I feel good.
Sure.
But I don't think the outer beauty is the most. Obviously, inner beauty is way more important. That's something.
But you also want to be attracted to the person.
Of course. You have to be attracted to the person, and then what keeps them around is what's inside.
Certainly.
I know that sounds corny, but my dad always used to say it doesn't matter on the outside; it's what's on the inside that counts, and that's always stuck with me because it's true. No doctors or beauty or estheticians can fix what's on the inside.
Certainly.
You have to.
Cool. So listen, as we kind of wind things down here, we're going to be doing a product to give away,
yes,
I heard.
That's
what are we giving away today, Mel?
We're giving a $100 gift card.
$100 gift card.
Do we qualify for that as well?
Sure.
Okay. Nice.
So is this for any service that you guys do through your business?
Yep. That's right.
Okay, so we'll kind of come up with something. We'll feature that on social media. We'll tell you how you can qualify to win that prize. So it's a $100 gift certificate to 6 Degrees Studio. So before we kind of wind down, Melissa, how can people get in touch with you? I did just say the name of the company, and the website is...
The website is 6studio.ca.
So 6studio.ca. Okay.
Number 6?
Number 6.
The number
Sorry,
6.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
and
important.
And you
the
can
number
book
6.
directly online, which makes it easy because no one likes to talk to anybody.
Everything's online.
Yes.
And what about social media? How can people perhaps contact you through social media?
On Instagram, it's 6 Degrees Studio, spelled out Degrees.
Okay,
So
but still with the number 6, okay.
Degrees Studio. I'm sorry we're not as frequent with our posts.
That's all right.
We're old school and I'm not used to posting all the time.
No doubt.
Yes.
Awesome. And before we leave, 'cause I do see you're supporting Portugal there on
yes,
your.
absolutely.
Who's winning the World Cup? World Cup
Portugal.
2018. All the way.
Ronaldo's been on fire, man.
He has.
He is. And you know what? You know what I like about him? He's consistent.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought you were going to say because he's hot or something.
He's okay. He's okay. I don't think
right?
he's like, you know. He's,
but he's a legend right now. He's been
amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely on top of his game. Melissa, it's been a great pleasure once again reconnecting with you after nearly a decade. Thanks so much for coming in. Very proud of you and the work you've put in and all that you've done with your business. We wish you nothing but continuous success. And you know that you're welcome here to join us anytime to talk sports, to talk business, whatever it is. Thanks so much for joining us on Toronto Talk Sports and more.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Toronto Talk Sports and more.
Well, thank you very much to our guests for joining us, Deems, Adwin, George, and Melissa. Thank you very much for your contributions. And look forward for our next episode, which will air Wednesday, June 27th. And until then, have a great week. Toronto Talk Sports and more. For the love of the six, let's connect.
Thank you for tuning into Toronto Talk Sports and more. Please subscribe to our podcast via Apple iTunes or Google Play Store. And stay tuned for new episodes, prizes, and surprises at TorontoTalkSports.com.